Gina Viola, please go ahead.
I don't see her pulled up, Madam Secretary. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Chief, I know that you have apologized over and over again for the statement that you made last night that the looters have as much blood on their hands for the killing of George Floyd as the police who actually killed him. But what this tells us, and what you're telling the community when you say things like this, is that you are finding a way to blame community members for why police murder. And you are currently sitting at the top of the most murderous police force in the country. You are all sitting here demanding accountability for officers that killed a man in Minnesota. However, you do nothing about officers that kill repeatedly here in Los Angeles. What about the officers who executed Grishario Mack? By some small miracle, this commission did the right thing and found those officers out of policy, Ryan Lee and Martin Robles. And what have you done, Chief Moore, to hold them accountable? The civil unrest in Los Angeles is not about Minnesota. It's about Los Angeles. You are not holding Los Angeles police officers accountable for anything that they do. And that's why people are rising up. We have been here in this room. You all know my face because you've seen it for years now. I've come week after week along with members of other organizations like Stop LAPD Spying, Black Lives Matter, organizations you've barely given any voice to, trying to do your jobs for you and tell you what's going on in the streets. Now you're seeing it firsthand. Chief, you need to step down. You need to resign, or this commission needs to do its job and fire you because you clearly cannot do it. You cannot hold officers accountable for anything that they do. I've been to the protests. I've been on cop watch. I watched the violence escalated when the police arrived. Every single time.
Your time is up. Thank you. The next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Kim, followed by Adam Smith. Kim, please go ahead.
Hi, just really quickly, I want to really agree with the two previous speakers. And I am not a regular activist. I just want to speak my personal experience. I'm a Korean American born and raised in Los Angeles. My family were store owners in Koreatown during the '92 unrest, and we are still store owners there. And I was a young teen in '92, but I recall very vividly everything that happened and what I thought. And there's this fetishized version of that uprising of Korean store owners on rooftops with guns. And while that was happening in places, I want you to understand my perspective, that though I was scared, I did not express anger at the looters or the Black community, because even as a young person, it was clear that what was happening out of an understandable deep rage. I was mad at the LAPD, extremely mad at the LAPD for causing the situation and handling it so utterly and completely. So now in 2020, I'm absolutely once again clear-sighted enough to know that I need to be laser focusing my anger and frustration at the true culprit, the gross mishandling by the LAPD of the justifiable public outrage in the form of protests. And you can continue to paper over what happened as you have done here today. This is my first time at a commission meeting, and it's clearly just a papering over of like reality. But I watched live the police show up ready for a fight and escalate situation after situation. And if you are in any way serious about serious change, Chief Moore has got to go. Given the insane amount of money the LAPD continues to hoard from the city budget, he is absolutely just inexcusably terrible at his job. That's all I have.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Adam Smith.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to listen to the commissioners and the chief reading your purportedly heartfelt pre-written statements lamenting about the loss of Black life, and specifically that of George Floyd. George Floyd's murder was and is and will continue to be a travesty, and will live as an example of what policing is and always has been in this country: cold, violent, and anti-Black. The fact that commissioners are talking about Black lives today and talking about a quote-unquote way forward rings incredibly hollow. Organizers from Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, as well as Stop LAPD Spying and the Los Angeles Community Action Network and others, have been attending these weekly meetings for years. The community has and continues to lift up the anti-Blackness that permeates from the institution of the LAPD, from its founding to today's community policing programs that Commissioner Goldsmith referenced during her earlier performance. From Grishario Mack to Ezel Ford to Kenny Watkins to Brendan Glenn to Eric Rivera, Jesse Romero, Victor Valencia, Charlie Africa, Waukesha Wilson, and literally hundreds of others, the community has continued to call out the anti-Black, anti-brown, anti-poor violence of the LAPD. This is the culture of your LAPD, and it's the culture of American policing. To hear you commissioners today, who are tasked with being, according to the LAPD website, the quote-unquote civilian voice in police affairs, talk about how you understand and how things need to change and how you all must look inward, that erases the years of organizing that has pushed you to act and that you've refused to act upon. It erases the voices of the mothers like Catherine Walker and Valerie Rivera and Lisa Hines and so many more that come to these meetings weekly to express their pain. Not only are your seemingly emotional statements given today much too late, they're a masterclass in erasure and disingenuity, and you should all be ashamed of yourself.
Next speaker, please.
Holly Pearson. Holly Pearson. Go ahead. Holly Pearson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Please.
I just want to make a note that there is just such a clear, and again, once again, I should not be a person speaking today, but I was able to get a queue in line, and it is a huge, appalling embarrassment that we had 45 minutes of tech issues before we were able to even hear anyone speak, let alone the public have their voice. Secondly, I would like to draw attention to the very clear opposition that when white protesters, majority white protesters in Los Angeles were protesting in Santa Monica for wearing masks and for being quarantined, the use of force was non-existent. The use of rubber bullets and the use of it's non-existent. And now you see true outrage that has been built in the fabric of our society forever, has finally come to the surface. And the use of force is so excessive, it's proving its own point and then some. And I'm going to yield my time because I truly don't actually have the right to speak here, and I want to hear from more Black voices, and I yield my time.
Next speaker, please.
Speaker is T. T, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Y'all need to keep George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery's out of your mouth. When you don't address the 600 plus people that the LAPD has murdered here with zero accountability, even when found out of policy, in the case of Grishario Mack and Albert Moore Dorsey, those officers are still on the job. How dare you? How dare you even talk about change and how you want to reform things? You guys this is unacceptable. And you descended upon peaceful protesters with elders and children there. You ambushed us with rubber bullets, batons, and spray. Okay? You guys ambushed us. There were children there. And Chief Moore absolutely needs to be fired. Lack of leadership and accountability. He's blaming the protesters. He's blaming the protesters for George Floyd's death. Are you kidding me? There are 600 people that have been murdered by LAPD, and y'all sit there complicit. Zelalem Inouyentu, Keisha Michael, Marquinton Sandlin, AJ Weber, Jesse Romero, who is 14, Eric Rivera, Waukesha Wilson, Anthony Vargas, John Horton, Dennis Todd Rogers, Albert Ramon Dorsey, Kenneth Ross Jr., Christian Escobedo, Kenneth Ross Jr., Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, Brother Africa, Kenny Watkins. You talk about violence? The violence is by your pigs, not us. Stop with your empty words. We need to hold these people accountable for their misconduct and their violence. Chief Moore needs to be fired. That concludes my comment. And
The next speaker, George Grunauer. George Gruenauer?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Hi, yeah. I just want to thank the chief of police for wasting everybody's time in this greatest time of need. I think he absolutely should be fired. The commissioner, all of you should be doing your job and making sure that this man no longer shows up. We need to defund the police department immediately. We need to find ways to create community-based system. We don't need these people anymore killing our folks in the streets, killing black and brown people. This man can't even look at us while we're talking, while the community speaks. He's just looking down at his fucking phone, texting, doing whatever the fuck. Yeah, look at me, motherfucker. I'm talking to you. We're all talking to you. We're tired of your shit. You're over here hitting and running protesters. We got it all on tape. You're over here shooting at media people that are just minding their own business too. We got it all, baby, and we're still recording you. So we need to get rid of this man. We need to get rid of these fucking pigs. And that's all I got to say. We need to hear more from the community. Stop wasting our time, Chief of Police, and stop killing us.
Thank you. The next speaker, Jocelyn Tucker. Jocelyn Tucker?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. This is embarrassingly my first time attending or participating in a police commission meeting. I do know those who have been participating week after week or month after month for years. Your words are falling on deaf ears because it's all flowery and nice to hear, but they're meaningless. When you say violence does not solve anything, I disagree, because I wholeheartedly, with every fiber in my being, believe that had not there been this violence, we would not be sitting here right now talking about what we're talking about. Chief, I'm embarrassed to say on live TV that the blood of George Floyd falls on the head of the looters is embarrassing. It's appalling. I get it. It was your knee-jerk reaction. But if that's your knee-jerk reaction, then you're not in the right job. I think you need to seriously consider resigning and allowing somebody who's better suited for this position to take over. Commissioners, you really need to look at someone who's more able to handle what's going on in our community, in our society, and does not continually blame the persecuted for the problems of the society. It really was embarrassing to hear you say that and then try to clean it up and apologize, but too late. The words were already out. It was already spoken. It was recorded. It was heard. So please do your city that you love so much a favor. Step down and allow somebody else who's better suited, that can do a better job for our city, take over and do the job. Thank you.
The next speaker is Zach Sherwin. Zach Sherwin, go ahead, please.
All right. I hope people who are hearing Chief Moore talk for the first time today and hearing these commissioners speak with all this grave concern and distress visible on their faces and audible in their voices, there's this greater context for these remarks. And Chief, your words do ring so hollow. Hearing you say the name George Floyd and express all this sentiment when you have not prosecuted Ryan Lee and Martin Robles for the killing of Grishario Mack in your own city, those are names that deserve to be just as infamous as Derek Chauvin's. This commission found them out of policy, and you haven't done anything about it. Nor have you acted in the killings of so many black and brown men: Eric Rivera, Albert Ramon Dorsey, Keith Bursey, Kenny Watkins, Ezel Ford, Brendan Glenn, Jesse Romero, Waukesha Wilson, on and on and on. How dare you, Chief Moore? I'm quoting you from before because I typed it as you said it. We will investigate each complaint, and I promise to hold accountable anyone who violates our policy or commits misconduct. You sure haven't set a great precedent of that with the way you've handled Lee and Robles in the murder of Grishario Mack. Shame on you. It's us holding ourselves accountable, you said about this moment. Damn your soul, Chief Moore. Commissioners, this is your moment. I am absolutely sickened by what this police department has done. That video of the SUV alone should just precipitate an apocalypse for this department. Moore, get out of your office. You know you fucked up. That thing you said about George Floyd on TV, too late. You don't get to take it back. Commissioners, this is your chance to do something. Steve Soberoff, be as furious about what this police department that you're tasked with overseeing, be as furious as what's going on with them as you are about the tech on this disgrace of a Zoom meeting. Commissioners, this is your time to do something. Chief Moore, shame on you. Shame on you. That concludes my remarks.
Okay. The next speaker, Samantha Gillen. Samantha Gillen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name's Samantha Gillen. I'm a resident of the city of Los Angeles. I want to second everybody who has spoken before me. And I also want to say that I've been to the protests downtown. The police force is completely militarized down there. I was at a protest yesterday, and there were hundreds and hundreds of cops, Humvees, army-clad people swarming these protests of peaceful demonstration. And I just think that's unacceptable. People are scared. We don't need more violence from you guys. And that's all. I'll yield my time.
The next speaker, Laura Espinosa. Laura Espinosa, please go ahead.
Hi, I was born and raised in East LA, and I'm very concerned about the militarization of my town. I think it's great that you're reviewing policy and have set deadlines for June to present reports, but we keep hearing go home and vote, but we aren't hearing immediate tangible solutions to calm the masses at this time. You have influence and a responsibility to attain prosecution of all of George Floyd's killers and all other murderous cops that the people before me mentioned. Please help us lower the federal standards so we could bring criminal charges against cops who murder our people. Help us limit immunity so we can hold accountable those who allow bad cops to continue abusing our communities. Help us create a national database of officers who commit bad acts. Currently, a cop can murder someone and be fired and go to a different town and still be cops. Please help us with your influence and give us immediate, tangible solutions. That's it.
The next speaker, Jorge Echevarria. Jorge Echevarria, go ahead, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to say that you should all be ashamed of yourselves. You took 45 minutes to make comments that don't mean anything. I want to second that if you all really take your job seriously, you will fire this man. He will not hold anybody accountable up to this point, as evidenced by all the violence at the protest caused by all the police officers. And I would like to give my time to another Black community member. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lexi Underwood.
Hi, I am a 16-year-old young Black woman, and I just want to propose the question. Do you know the trauma behind watching countless Black men and women be killed by racist police officers? I was at the protest on Saturday. I chose to exercise my First Amendment right as an American citizen, along with hundreds of other people, to stand in solidarity to end the systematic racism that is in this country. As we yelled the names of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, police officers laughed at us. They laughed in our faces. They shot at just countless peaceful protesters. Your officers were the ones that were being violent with us. There were children in the crowd. There were elderly women and men in the crowd. I saw people ducking behind cars. People were running. And you are seriously going to sit here and say that it is our fault that an innocent Black man was suffocated to death? You should all be ashamed of yourselves. I'm 16 years old, and I know more than all of you. The fact that I can speak up about this type of shit, and you guys are in, what, your 50s, and can't even can't even bring justice to all the countless Black men and women that have been killed. This has been a fight for as long as since the beginning of time. You all said this when Trayvon Martin was killed. You said this when Eric Garner was killed. You've been saying this for years. So what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do? Is this just gonna be a thing that you pass over? This is just a simple conversation that you have, and then everything goes back to normal? You should all be incredibly ashamed of yourselves. I'm done. Thank you.
The next speaker, Margaret Oakley. Margaret Oakley, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm live streaming this on Instagram, and I have about a dozen people that have contributed. So these are collective comments. I want to thank everyone. First of all, I just want to say personally, martial law is not going to bring about a just and equitable society. The collective top concerns were regarding the complete loss of faith and trust in the police to protect the public. What steps are you taking to actually regain any sense of this trust? We're deeply concerned with the attack on the First Amendment rights. What steps are you taking to protect peaceful protesters? Racial bias is incredibly strong in the policing of these protests. What steps are you taking to guard against racial bias today? Today, we just got an alert, 6 p.m. curfew today. Accountability and excessive force. There needs to be transparency. We need completely independent review boards for any and all injuries or deaths resulting from actions by on or off-duty officers. And the people's budget. How are you working toward community care and nonviolent social protection? That hasn't even been addressed. And curfew times have been announced with very little notice. People don't have time to get home. There was a sense of entrapment last night in downtown LA. None of this is being addressed. Please do better. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Colleen Goldberg. Colleen Goldberg, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for holding this meeting and adjusting the agenda to address the current climate we are in. I appreciate the intention of the statements made by Commissioner Decker, Commissioner Goldsmith, Commissioner Bonner, Commissioner Soboroff, and Chief of Police Moore, but they are empty and meaningless without actual programs that are proven to reduce police violence. Furthermore, how can you justify your intentions and words are true and meaningful when there have been zero convictions against any LAPD officers under the DA, Jackie Lacey, since she took office in 2013? I appreciate that Chief of Police Moore's job is to protect his officers, and I can only imagine the fear each police officer faces not every day, but this past week, when the public is rightfully outraged. But that does not take into account the purpose of the police force, to protect and serve the public. Black Americans are disproportionately hurt by the police, not served. I yield my time to a person of color.
The next speaker, Naomi Z. Naomi Z. Go ahead. Naomi Z. Okay, one moment. I'll call the next speaker, Ethan Chrisman. Ethan Chrisman. Okay.
Give it a moment, Madam Secretary. There could be a tech
Hello?
problem.
Go ahead.
And I see what's going on. I can only think of my students. I'm also a white American, so I'm not going to take too much time. But I have questions for this commission that if you are taking what you guys are saying to us seriously, that you'll write these questions down and seriously consider them. So you mentioned in the hour and a half of time that we took before we heard from the community about retraining police. How exactly are you guys going to do that, and how will that be made transparent to the public? Because what I see is police are trained to follow orders as opposed to doing what's right. And following orders, and I'm a history teacher, has led to some of the darkest chapters in human history. I don't need to go through the laundry list. Plenty of other people can take their time to do that. And maybe you can start with this. If and very likely when Officer Chauvin in Minneapolis is acquitted, what is LAPD's plan for what's going to happen then? Because we saw what happened with Rodney King in 1992, and that only happened after after the police officers were acquitted. We're seeing this now, and he hasn't even been brought to trial. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Naomi Z, are you there? Naomi Z? Okay. The next speaker, John Zirolnik. John?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. My name is John Zorolnik. I live and work in Los Angeles. I own property in Los Angeles. Never come to a police commission meeting before. I took time off work today to come because I'm horrified about what I've been seeing over the last week, and I wanted to hear some explanation and see some leadership. I'm disappointed. I managed to get into this meeting. First of all, I should say shame on the LAPD officers who have filled the lines to keep the community out of this meeting. That is despicable. Commissioners, I appreciate your words, but I don't know what to make of it when it's the year 2020 and you're talking about studies and reports. At this moment, our words must be extra pretty, is the message that you're sending. And it's a little horrifying. And this commission may be operating in good faith, but ineffectively. This commission may be intentionally covering up for the corrupt entity that is the LAPD. I don't know which, and I don't actually believe it matters because the results are the same. You're not helping, commissioners. In fact, you're failing this city. We can't have business as usual anymore. Please, for once, be leaders. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is the initials CA. CA.
Yes, hi, Caroline Anderson is my name. I know that you're having a tough one there, Sheriff. I do want to thank you for one thing. You referred to rubber bullets as less lethal. I think that is very important to reinforce that rubber bullets are less lethal. People are being injured by these. They're intended to be shot down on the ground, and police officers are shooting them directly at people, as well as tear gas during a pandemic that affects the respiratory system, which I've not heard addressed yet in this time. Unthinkable cruelty to me. And yes, I'm also here to call for the resignation of Sheriff Moore. I do believe that you're genuinely sorry about the reaction to your comments, but I would prefer a sheriff that never had those thoughts to begin with. So with that, I will cede my time to other members of the community. Thank you so much.
Yeah. The next speaker. One moment, please.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask the Secretary again, we established a protocol before of identifying the speakers in the queue so they could be ready. So we may want to.
The next three speakers, yes. Madam Secretary, if you could give people just a little bit advance warning, call the next three people in queue so that they know that they should be ready.
Okay, the next three speakers, Z-Dog, Michael Williams, and I apologize. And Diane Foster. One moment. Z-Dog, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Zolma. I'm sorry about the Z-Dog thing. I was just messing around. You know, I do appreciate your words, guys. And I heard the Chief of Police apologize. And I'm listening to you guys. And I'm here to listen to what you guys, if you're even listening. And I see you guys carrying. And the problem is that there's only one thing that needs to happen right now. The demands of BLM are very simple. The first thing that should happen is arrest the 4 cops. Can we get some claps over here? Like, I know that America right now, me telling you this is saying, yes, finally somebody said it. Arrest the 4 freaking cops, period. Period. You want the nation to stop protesting? Arrest the 4 cops. Charge them with, I don't give a shit if it's petty, whatever the fuck. Charge these bitches with something. I don't give a fuck what it is. Arrest all these bitches. Arrest the bad cops. Fire any motherfucker that kills. Number 1, charge that major. You can see it in the New York Times. You can see that all 4 of them held him down. One of them was watching. Okay? There's a picture. If you screenshot it, you watch the 8-minute video in the New York Times, you can see the whole incident of George Floyd. Now, defunding the police. Yes, man, we haven't paid our rent in forever. We're starving out here. We're on food stamps, EDD. We need that money redistributed to help the homeless. The cops are too many. They almost shot me in the face the other day that I went to the protest. A cop pointed the rubber bullet gun to my face while I was in a moving vehicle because my Uber driver was black. What the fuck? I was a peaceful protester. I left at 3:30 when they started shooting us at Trader Joe's. WTF, let us leave. It's not us looting. I haven't looted for shit. All the decent people left at 3:30.
Thank you. The next speaker, Michael Williams. Diane Foster, please.
Hi, hello. I want to make this quick. I'm very upset by everything, so apologize for my streakiness. I want to quickly empathize with all of you and your experience. Your job is full of complexities and challenges, and I'm sure you feel like you're constantly failing, especially on a call like this, as people keep reminding you. That said, you should be ashamed of your efforts, and people not respecting you is a real problem. You are more effective when people respect you, and you will earn that respect with very needed changes and implementations of policies. I am, for the record, calling for the resignation of the police chief. And for me, I would personally like to see more representation of people of color on this commission. And I'm going to yield my time to people who need this time more than I do. Thank you.
The next 3 speakers, Blake Danchik, Beth Corzo, and Molly Ware. Blake, go ahead.
You guys can hear me?
Yes.
So I think, like everything else that's been said, one of the other big things here is that for our police chief, I am a resident in Los Angeles. I work in the film industry. Something I hold very dear. It's my income. It's my livelihood. And it's also a very dangerous job. I've thanked many of your officers that have been helping there with us when we're out in downtown LA shooting, doing whatever for various jobs and all that. But those same cops can't go home at the end of the day or go do something else and then go kill innocent people. I overheard your reports earlier, police chief, about some of the incidents that have happened in the last couple of days. And it blows my mind that out of 4 or 5 incidents, all of them needed gunfire when you guys also carry tasers. There are plenty of ways you can still make your point without having to go to a lethal effort. And one of the other things that really pisses me off is everyone says, we need to make this place better for the kids. We need to change the life for our children and everything. And I don't know if you guys can see every square on this board right now, but I can. And you being responsible as a police chief with so many deaths of African-American men and women, I mean, you might as well basically look at Commissioner Bonner right now and tell him that his kids' lives don't matter to you, because one day they're going to be as old as him and they're going to be abused by the police if something doesn't happen. So respectfully, I think you need to lose your job, and we need some change in LA, and we will defund the police. You can rest assured on that. Thank you.
Hello? Hi, can you hear
We
me?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm going to use my time to read from a report from the 2015 Say Her Name report authored by Kimberly Crenshaw and Adrian J. Ritchie. I want to lift up the lives of women who were brutalized at the hands of Los Angeles police officers. Alicia Thomas on July 22nd, 2012. Alicia Thomas, who's a Los Angeles, California mother, dropped off her two children, aged 3 and 12, at a Los Angeles police station because she felt she was unable to care for them. In response, LAPD officers came to Thomas's apartment and arrested her for child abandonment. Officer Mary O'Callahan was caught on tape, repeatedly kicking Thomas as she attempted to arrest her and move her into the police vehicle. Thomas lost consciousness in the back of the police vehicle, went into cardiac arrest, and was pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after. Sonia Taylor, December 16, 1993. Los Angeles, California police officers shot 27-year-old Sonia Taylor on a rooftop parking lot where she had parked her car. Taylor was a college graduate and a church choir member. In 1997, the city agreed to a $2.45 million settlement for an event that could have been avoided. This was 1993. I'm running out of time. There's one more name I'm going to read. Margaret Laverne Mitchell, May 21st, 1999. Margaret Mitchell was shot dead by an LAPD police officer on the streets where she lived. Mitchell was well known in the area. She was walking away from the officers who then shot her in the back. The officers later then claimed that Mitchell, who was 54 years old, weighed 102 pounds, lunged at them with a screwdriver, causing them to fear their lives. The shooting was found to have violated LAPD rules, but the officer who shot Mitchell was acquitted of all criminal charges.
Time is up. Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Molly Ware. Molly Ware, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to speak really quickly. I'm calling for the resignation of Police Chief Moore because it's clear that your priorities are to protect your police force and not the people of Los Angeles. And I'm going to give the rest of my time to my partner who is sitting right here, who is Black.
Hi, my name is Andrew Allen. I'm a non-binary Black person living here in Los Angeles. I just wanted to say that part of the issue here seems to me that our concept of what the police are. Right, you've talked about, having special training to avoid discrimination, how to de-escalate, yada, yada, yada. But to me, it mostly sounds like you are talking about measures to reel back what the instinct of these officers is, which is to use unnecessary force, which begs the question, who are the people that you are hiring in the first place? And why do they think that the job of the cops is to hurt people? That's my question, okay? Why does it seem to me that all you're talking about is you're talking about this almost uncontrollable force of violence that you're doing your best to say, oh, please dial it back. Try and tone it down a little bit, right? Why is that the way it is? Why is that our concept of what the police are? If the job is to protect the community, then why do you have to do so much work to get them not to kill people, okay? So that's my question for you. And that's not something you need to answer right now. That's something you need to think about. If this is how we think police are, if this is what we think police do, if people look at this footage, watch people being brutalized by the police in the street, who do you think are going to sign up to be the police in the future, right? If this is what we think the police are, if we watch all these footage of the protests of police officers out in the street macing people, tear gassing people, beating people, then the people who sign up to be police officers are going to be the people who want to beat, mace, and tear gas people. And that cycle is going to repeat itself forever. And that is how it's been repeating itself forever, which is why we need to defund and abolish the police as they have presently existed in order to cut the cycle off at the pass and address these problems head on. Thank you.
I would also like to say really quickly that Police Chief Moore was directly behind the lines of the police at the May 30th protests. He was calling the shots.
Madam Secretary, we have to go. We have a lot of people in queue. I have to hold everybody to the 2 minutes. Madam Secretary, the next speaker, please.
The next three speakers, Victoria Gaines, Irene Farr, and Andrew Jorgensen. Victoria Gaines, go ahead, please. Victoria Gaines.
Please give it a moment just to be sure if the speaker's there.
I'm here. I'm sorry, I was muted.
That's fine. Please proceed.
My name is Victoria Gaines. I'm a resident of Los Angeles. I'm a transfer resident. And it ashames me that in the city that I call my home, that my friends, my family, my loved ones have to be at fear, afraid of the police officers that are meant to protect us. We are waiting and begging for leaders. It is time for you to stand up and do a better job. And I can't say that any further dollars should be going to the police at all. I can't say that I support any police actions that I have witnessed this weekend, the brutalization of so many people, namely Black people, not just people of color, but Black people. Does LA want peace or does LAPD want power? That's the question that I have for you. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Irene Farr, please.
Hi, my name is Irene Farr. I have lived and grown up in LA, and I'm a UCLA urban planning graduate student. I'm committed to justice. Today, I call on each of you to say their names before the end of this call. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Sean Reed, Tony McDade, Crucerio Mack, Kenneth Ross Jr., Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner. Say their names, do your homework, and learn who the people you and your fellow police workers have killed. If you don't have the time or capacity to do so, there is no space for you to serve the public. Commissioners, I call on you to recognize the ways in which you have and are actively supporting and engaging in policies that have killed Black people. You are responsible for everything that has unfolded before us. Chief Moore, telling us stories that you feel justify your violence is not acceptable. Your story is not enough. We don't want to hear your narrative. We want you to listen to the stories of Black people, the stories that you have worked to codify for generations. I have no choice but to advocate for the defunding of the police. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Andrew Jorgensen. Go ahead. Andrew Jorgensen.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I'm calling from my husband's line. My name is Laura Dominguez, and I'm a longtime resident of Koreatown and a historian speaking in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. The National Guard is in our neighborhood. The trauma is real and it's generational. We are living in a military state while the city of Los Angeles deflects its role in the murders of more than 600 of our residents. We are watching LAPD escalate its attacks on Black people, on peaceful protesters, and of members of the press before our own eyes. And our leadership is deliberately missing the point of these actions, that Black and brown people are fighting for their lives in a system that was always designed to strangle them. We cannot forget that the history of policing in the US is directly linked to the preservation of slavery in the 19th century. Chief Moore, your words last night were unconscionable. You should be fired. We need to rethink the entire paradigm of law enforcement, care, and services in our city, starting with new leadership. And I yield the rest of my time.
Next speaker, Madam Secretary.
The next three speakers, Cicely Bingener, Casey Kaufman, and Lily Weiner. Cicely Bingener, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm a proud resident of Los Angeles, and my parents and grandparents came to Los Angeles in 1908. So we've been in Los Angeles 112 years as a family. We've lived through many iterations of many police chiefs, many police forces, and up to the current one. And my most vivid memory is of the notorious Daryl Gates. So I will give you credit that the current chief, you are an improvement over the last one. But I am concerned about whether we replace this chief. I'm going to go back to Commissioner Bonner's comments about, changing the culture of the police as an organization. So sometimes the head can be great or the head can be awful, and the followers don't necessarily follow what the head is doing. So I would like to see the commission focus on creating that culture within the police. And then for Chief of Police, since you mentioned prayer, I am a prayerful person as well. And out of the overflow of a heart is what a man speaks. So if you misspoke, you really do need to go within your heart if you are a believer and understand why those words came out of your mouth. And I yield my time to my fellow citizens.
Okay. Casey Kaufman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, so we are on IG Live and we've accumulated a bunch of questions, but I just want to say first how embarrassing the ineptitude of this particular Zoom meeting is. We call for the resignation of the police chief Moore, who clearly doesn't understand or give a shit about this public. And I'm a white person. I would prefer to extend questions to you guys rather than state my perspective. We want to know how you are qualifying the mayor's budget versus the people's budget. If the mayor is supposed to represent us, and why isn't anyone listening to us anymore? How are the budgetary funds being reallocated from the funding of the police to serve Black and Brown communities? What does it take for police to be prosecuted for their murders, the murders of 600 people plus since Jackie Lacey has been elected? Will you be using people's videos to pursue police brutality, excess force, and wrongful arrests? And these curfews, how do you qualify these? Why are you announcing curfew 45 minutes before it is enforced? Why are you unnecessarily arresting people in a pandemic, packing jails full of people in close proximity during a viral pandemic and ensuing panic on the public? Why are police preventing people from leaving before a curfew and then forcing them to go on buses to Long Beach to get citations? Protest safety. If you are claiming peace, why are you shooting people with rubber bullets directly in the face? Why are you using military force on civilians? What will it take to get a cop fired and to stay fired? Because clearly murder isn't the line. I yield my time to other people.
Lily Weiner. Lily. Okay. The next three speakers, Kate Katz, Paula Miner, and Britt Spindler.
Madam Secretary, before we move on, Lily Weiner never came to the screen. Did she go offline? Oh, there she is.
Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Okay. Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Ryan Eliopoulos. I'm a resident of CD4, and I also speak for Lily Weiner, also a resident of CD4. We stand with Black Lives Matter. There's plenty of things to be enraged about when it comes to the LAPD. They've killed more than 610 people based on 10-year-old data. I'm sure it's many more than that now. The point is not the completely atonal concern about civil unrest, as Chief Michael Moore just put it. What the citizens are actually concerned about is the constant escalation of police violence and the curtailing of First Amendment rights. This is civil unrest by definition, and Chief Moore should resign. The department has a long history of racist violence in the city and a virtually non-existent history of winning back community trust. Mayor Garcetti's sporadic curfew setting coupled with shutting down public transit must only be seen as a naked attempt to trap protesters in the streets and to make mass arrests easier. Within this context, the fact that the LA City Council has irresponsibly and undemocratically decided that the LAPD will be taking $3 billion of the city's budget this year while all other city departments are starved of funding is appalling. This is legally and disproportionately choking the life out of communities of color in LA on a macro scale. In light of this, when the department can't even set up an adequate IT interface for a meeting like this one today, with the staggering amount of funding you have, how on earth is anyone supposed to trust you to solve the infinitely more complex problem of systemic racism? The incompetence is beyond parody. As a concerned citizen, know that this is an issue that affects everyone. The LAPD should be demilitarized and defunded for the health and benefit of Black communities, communities of color, and all LA communities. Excess crackdowns on alleged looters and rioters comes at enormous expense to the civil and constitutional rights of every citizen, and at the direct expense and bodily harm and the lives of Black people and communities of color. We're seeing an unprecedented rise of police control in all of our major cities, and that is against everything the city of LA is supposed to stand for. I yield the rest of my time.
The next three speakers, Kate Katz, Paula Miner, and Britt Spindler. Kate Katz, go ahead.
Good morning. I don't envy any of you right now today. What I am listening to in this discussion is a community that is in deep trauma. And I am afraid that you have doubled down on that today with this commission. So I am asking for a public statement on how you plan to fix the trauma that you have inflicted once again on a very sensitive and broken and abused population. I have direct questions that I would like public answers to at some point from this commission in a public statement. How are you planning to commit to the changes that you are talking about? And I'm speaking personally to you, Chief, as you made in your statement this morning that you're working on this. I'm also asking for answers from the department on how they plan to commit to these changes. And I'm also asking that of this commission to answer that question. Many citizens are also fearing retaliation for making complaints against bad cops. Can this department ensure the safety of citizens who flag bad officers? Right now, even coming forward to address these issues that we've been talking about carries with it substantial risk. Can this commission actually guarantee the safety of the citizens who are trying to hold their own police department accountable? We had a speaker, Laura Espinoza, who spoke earlier today. She made beautiful points. If you're recording this, I highly recommend you go back, listen to her points, highlight what she's asking for, and focus on those changes. Public trust is required to have successful relationships with the community, and that trust is broken. And we as the public are left shorthanded in this relationship. Unfortunately, we have no other option but to request the defunding of your department. Thank you. I yield the time.
Thank you. The next speaker, Paula Miner. Paula Miner.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Paula Miner with Black Lives Matter. First, Chief Moore, your words last night as the leader of LAPD, your philosophy, your thoughts, and your words are important. What you said was a travesty and unacceptable. And it does not allow you to be the example that we expect officers should follow. If you're the leader, what you think and say is important. You cannot always back out and apologize out of things that you say. You are the leader of supposedly 10,000 people, and this is what you reflect. You should definitely resign. You should leave. You say things in public that you think sound good. You're always painting a PR picture. You implied to the public that you had wanted to meet with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter representatives have attended every commission meeting since you have been chief. You have never invited us to meet with you. Even when you have meetings in the Black community, even when you met with the Black clergy, you never invited Black Lives Matter. Yesterday on camera, you tell the reporter that you want to meet with Patrisse Cullors, the Black Lives Matter founder. And she said, why? You already know what our demands are. You already know what changes need to be made. You and this commission have been hearing what needs to change. Stop lying. Hold officers accountable for their murders and their brutality of Black people. Stop signing off on false police reports, like in the case of Grishario Mack, where an independent autopsy and eyewitness reports totally contradicted the fake police and coroner's report. As long as law enforcement like you continue to lie, practice racially biased actions such as stop and frisk, putting the names of Black people falsely into the gang database, and never holding officers accountable, as in the case of the Grishario Mack, Albert Ramon Dorsey, and others found out. No one believes you. You need to go.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Britt Spindler. Britt Spindler, go ahead. Britt Spindler.
Why don't we recall that person and try and move on to the next person?
The next speaker was the next three speakers are Greg Katz.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay.
Spindler?
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Brittany Spindler. I live in Eagle Rock, CD 14. The first step to correcting your misdeeds, the heinous actions of the LAPD, is listening to the public. But that is not enough. You have to act. You cannot just let the public's ears or the public's words fall on deaf ears. And Chief Moore, your response is not enough. I could see the rest of you commissioners, as you were listening to Chief Moore give his statement, the shame in your faces as you recognize that his statements were not enough. You could see and you could hear that he was blaming our community's actions for the actions and the violence of the police. And you're ashamed. You're ashamed of these actions, and you need to act on that. Chief, you need to resign. Commission, you need to act on that. He needs to be out. You have lied about the way that the National Guard is acting in our communities. You have said that the National Guard is only sitting at places that were vandalized. I witnessed this in Garcetti's press conference the other day, and I've seen the National Guard patrolling. The Guard is walking around. They were stationed in the Palisades. Nothing has happened in the Palisades. This is insubstantial, what you were saying. It's disgusting, the words that you said about George Floyd. Black Lives Matter. Capital cannot be valued over Black lives. And can each of you say that? Can each of you say that Black Lives Matter without knowing in your hearts that you're lying? Because if you cannot, you do not deserve a position in our city. You are not suited to serve our public. We demand more. We are scared and we are vulnerable, and the police is not protecting us. Thank you. I yield my time.
The next three speakers, Eli Henry, Greg Katz, and Tyler Moore. Eli Henry, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
My question is, what have you learned? This is to Chief Moore and to all of the members of the LAPD that may be missing. Earlier, Chief Moore, you said that you had to increase the military or the police presence to quell these protests. But from the get-go, you came ready for war. These peaceful protesters, they were doing nothing, and the police came ready, just in all of the military equipment they've been given, passed down, which is its own issue. They came ready. They were looking for this. You know, and I want you to say, you know, you talk about the idea of ending this protest. I don't think anybody here doesn't believe that you have the resources, the manpower, and the equipment to end a protest, but it goes a lot bigger than that. It has nothing to do, it goes larger than George Floyd. That's not what this is about anymore. This is about systemic racism. Now, you can show up, you can bring everyone, you can beat up as many protesters as you like, but it's not going to stop unless we make some deep changes. Now, there's only so much I can say. I'm just pissed. I know everyone's pissed, and I see some of you are pissed, but it's not enough. Listen to the demands from the Black Lives Matter activists. Thank you.
The next speaker, Greg Katz, go ahead, please.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm a business owner and homeowner in the city of Los Angeles. This is my first time speaking at a LAPD commission meeting. I want to express my grave concern over Chief Moore's comments last night, blaming protesters for the death of George Floyd. Chief Moore's comments, or his attempt to walk them back later, did not diminish his obvious sincerity when he made his remarks. Chief Moore should be censured by the police commission for his comments, and he should be replaced as chief. As you well know, if there's no trust between the LAPD and Angelenos, the community cannot be safely and effectively policed. And after days of his officers using violence against nonviolent protesters, Chief Moore's comments finished off the trust at this time of crisis. I'd also like to add that the inaccessibility of today's meeting to the public was not only a Brown Act violation, but also a sad comment on the lack of the police accountability here in Los Angeles. I'll vote on these issues, but I hope the commission will hold the chief and department accountable in the meantime. Thank you.
Next speaker, Tyler Moore. Tyler Moore, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Tyler Moore. I'm a white male living in Studio City. Will you advocate for defunding to the LAPD and more funding towards affordable housing, education, and public services? Will you, the LAPD, take that hit in your income in your employees' income to make sure our society in Southern California, the biggest city down here, is going to be taken care of. Chief, why are you so familiar with the injuries to the police, but you failed to mention the innumerable injuries to these protesters? I yield the rest of my time because there's nothing else more to say than that.
The next three speakers, Megan Nuringer, Matthew Pardue, and Brandon Benoit. Megan Nuringer, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, I would just like to say why the police who are here to so-called protect and serve are covering up their badge numbers and not putting their body cams on during these protests. I would like to know what you are doing to wipe out white supremacy in your own department. I want to know if you're taking accountability for white supremacist cops inside your own departments and what you are doing to actually wipe out white supremacy. We know that police departments across the country have white supremacists who are signing up to be police officers. If you want to stop the destruction and violence and brutality in Black communities, it starts with your own departments. And if you can answer for how you're being accountable to ending that right now in your departments and what you will be doing in the future, that would go a long way to your communities to start instilling trust. And I yield the rest of my time.
Matthew Pardue, go ahead. Matthew Pardue, go ahead, please.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I want to start by saying that I stand with Black Lives Matter, and I'm calling today to express major concern with Chief Moore and the policing mentality as a whole with LAPD. I'm calling for Chief Moore to be fired as well. First of all, what Chief Moore said yesterday is a disgrace to our community, and it's evident that he isn't interested in holding his department and officers accountable. If he thinks it's looters that are responsible for the death of George Floyd, then who is responsible for the 600+ police murders on the hands of LAPD over the last 7 years? We need a police force that is willing to hold its officers accountable, not push the blame over on members of the community. That starts from the top down, and Chief Moore is signaling that he isn't willing to hold LAPD accountable for its actions. The people of this community are furious. We're furious because our Black brothers and sisters are having their lives and sense of safety looted from them by the LAPD. This isn't just about George Floyd. It's about the mentality of policing in this city and the fact that the LAPD is ready to protect and serve themselves while terrorizing and neglecting the needs of Black and brown community members. It's about the fact that certain officers don't have empathy and love for the communities that they're working in. It's about the fact that we're actually safer when police officers put their weapons down. It's about the fact that there's no real accountability, transparency, or consequences when officers make life and death decisions on the job. LAPD is not supposed to be the judge, jury, and executioner just because an officer claims to be worried for their safety. There must be much higher standards, and you all must do much better. I yield my time. Thank you.
Brandon Benoit, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to start off by saying that I think it's incredibly offensive that Mayor Garcetti is not present at this meeting. And for that, I say, fuck your curfew. I will be out protesting with the best of them today. I've been a part of protests where, Deputy Moore, you say that your interest is protecting the civilians that are out there. I've been personally shot at for literally walking down the street. I think that is bullshit. I think it is bullshit that there are videos of police inciting and setting up bricks, etc., on the streets, and videos of police breaking windows and then saying that the looters are then at fault. I believe that your PR statement before you went to give a fake apology was the utmost disrespect and slap to the face of the citizens of Los Angeles. You clearly have a record of being a piece of shit, And I hope that Deputy Moore, you do lose your job. That's all I have to say today.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Allison Miller, Z, and Randy Butler. Allison Miller, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, I have a lot of things to say and a lot of thoughts and feelings. For starters, I'm incredibly frustrated that each and every one of you commissioners started out your statement with, I know that the words I'm saying will fail. Cool. Cool for excusing it right away. That's awesome. But I would like to direct the bulk of my comments to Chief Moore, and I'm about to scold you like the fucking child you have been throughout this meeting, because apparently that's the kind of thing you respond to. You have met with military force peaceful protests. Tear gas is against the Geneva Convention, and you are using it on our citizens. You are shooting rubber bullets point blank at people that are meant to be shot on the ground and deflected to disperse crowds. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. Your words last night were disgusting, and you cannot walk those back, particularly because in the moment you acknowledge this is a strong statement. You knew the words you said, you meant them. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your job is to protect the citizens of our city, and you don't care. The death of Black people in our city should hurt you personally, the way that it hurts all of us. People have spent the bulk of this meeting telling you to resign. If I had hundreds of people lining up to tell me that I was this terrible at my job, I wouldn't sit there blinking. We are upset at you and at the rest of you for allowing him to function in this way. We cannot vote this man out. We cannot wait. He must be removed and actual change has to start happening. I yield my time.
The next speaker, Z. Go ahead. Z.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Harry May Klein. I'm a fourth generation resident of Los Angeles. First of all, I would like to say that the incompetence and the statements made by the commissioners and Chief Moore are despicable and indicative of the incompetence of this department. I am demanding the acknowledgement of 600 deaths by murder of the police department. I want this department to acknowledge the use of violence and force against peaceful protesters. I demand this department to be defunded and redistributed to the communities that it has terrorized. You should be ashamed of yourself. I yield my time.
The next speaker, Randy Butler. Go ahead, Randy Butler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jody Butler. I'm speaking on behalf of my sister, Randy Butler. We are two African-American single mothers who live in a predominantly white neighborhood. I just want to first say that we are in constant fear whenever we see police, and I think it's disgusting. The question that we have is who qualifies for the people that sit at the board and what are the qualifications? Because right now it is disgraceful that of the 600 plus killings that we have had at the hands of police, I believe that they all should be removed. And how often are you voting on them, and how often do you check on them, because this is just despicable. That I yield my time.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Kristen Studer, Wave Segal, and Daniel Gaines. Kristen Studer, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, I'm a resident in Los Angeles, and I am
I'm absolutely disgusted by the state of things. I'm disgusted by what has been happening in regard, in particular, to the way protesters are being treated in this city. I have never felt less safe exercising my right to protest peacefully than I did when the police showed up. There are no clear instructions being given to people. There is no effort at de-escalation being made. There is an effort to trap people, put them in fear, and just wait and hope that somebody makes a mistake so that force can be used. We should be being protected. I should not feel unsafe when the people who have to serve and protect on their vehicles show up. I feel less safe when I see police. And I'm a white person. And it's just fucking, I wasn't gonna swear on this. It is absolutely ludicrous. The police, I hear at the beginning of this meeting, I hear in your statement that you're committed to taking action, and yet no definable action has been taken. No definable action has been outlined even. I'm hearing all of this stuff about how, you know, we're gonna do a study. I want to see people fired. I want to see the police rebuilt from the ground. This is absolutely outrageous, and I also call for the firing of you, Moore, sitting there with your mask on. Disgusting, despicable treatment of people, human beings, the citizens of this city, human beings. Thank you.
The next speaker, Wave Segal. Wave Segal. Wave Segal. Okay. The next.
Madam Secretary, he seems to be on mute. Can you unmute his?
It
looks like his Wave is still logged in.
I'm attempting to unmute him, but I think he's muted on his end.
Okay, why don't we try to come back and go on to the next speaker. Oh, wait, there it is.
Wave Segal, go ahead.
Almost, I think. Why don't we try it one more time?
Okay.
If not, let's move to the next speaker and see if we can come back.
The next speaker is Daniel Gaines. Daniel Gaines, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi there. Yes, I'm a Los Angeles City resident. I'd like to just quickly say, you know, I support the comments of my fellow community members, and you know, for all of the police murders that have happened in this county and in this city, you know, we need to have accountability. Well, first we need to stop the violence, but also we need to desperately are in need of accountability. You know, why should the public, especially Black and brown people, have faith in their government and in their police department specifically when the message to them is that the police officers can brutalize them, even kill them without consequence? I can't speak for people of color, but I would say if that was my case, I would be ready to tear my city down if I felt like there was a constant target on my back and on the backs of those I love, you know. So things must change, and if we really want to change things, we need to show people that we're serious about change. And that means step one, Michael Moore must resign or be fired. Step two, we need to offer real tangible solutions like an independent review board. You know, we need to offer actual actions, because people justifiably, you know, do not believe your words anymore. So and on top of that, you know, I'm concerned about the homeless, the unhoused residents of this city who are being caught in the curfews, and I'd like to know what the police is doing to protect them in this time. I yield the rest of my time.
I will try Wave Segal again. No.
All right.
Okay. The next three speakers: T. Larson, Baba Akili, and Jessica Chape. One moment, please. T. Larson, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a resident and business owner in Council District 1. I'm calling to state my hope for the resignation of Chief Police Moore. I think that there's a cavernous gulf between the statement he made at the start of this call and his actual actions. There was a complete lack of leadership in how the protests were handled. The police escalated the violence and are the ones responsible for the rioting, not the protesters themselves. The statement yesterday of blaming the protesters for the death of George Floyd is completely unacceptable. You cannot walk that back with the PR wash over. You cannot play lip service to fix that. It's unacceptable. You are the leader. I can't believe that all of the officers are deployed right now, and this is what we get. It's unacceptable. I yield my time.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Baba Akili. Baba Akili, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Akili. First of all, let me start out by saying that those were the most asinine, ignorant statements that the police chief made yesterday. He needs to be fired just for making those statements alone. That is the kind of statement that engenders distrust. That's the kind of statement that causes us to say this person does not need to be in leadership anywhere, anytime. Secondly, I want to talk about the distance between the police in Minnesota and the police in LA. Listen, is 1,500 miles. That's the only difference. The difference between what that officer did to George Floyd and the difference between what the officers did to Goshario Mack in the Baldwin Hills Center was 1,500 miles. That's the only difference. And the fact that there was no action taken against those police officers, Ryan Lee and Martin Robles, is the same thing that's happening now, and it's connected to what happened to George Floyd. To recommend training was in fact an insult. The distance between the killing of Eric Rivera, Albert Ramon Dorsey, and all the others that have been killed by LA police and nothing has been done is no different than what happened in Minnesota. And so the police chief, y'all need to fire him, and you need to stop talking pretty and start holding police accountable. And we are demanding justice for our family, and we want to make sure that the people's budget is embraced and that we reduce and defund the police, because that money that is being used for the police could be used for universal services like housing, youth programs, and many other things that could guarantee a better quality of life in LA, not more police. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Chippy, I'm sorry. Jessica, go ahead.
Give it a moment, please.